Here we are again at Beyond Bandwidth, Leviton's podcast series where we dive into network technology's hottest topics. I am your host from Leviton Network Solutions, Roy Chamberlain. In today's episode, I speak with Ron Kotwica, the Specification Engineer for Leviton Network Solutions out of Chicago. Ron supports and guides clients and the Leviton Sales Team on needs and issues with respect to all technology and structured cabling needs. Many times that includes devices that require power over Ethernet and are farther than 100 meters away from their network switch. We discuss his experiences and how he engineers solutions to solve this matter in real time on a daily basis. All right, welcome to the show, Ron. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what your role is at Leviton?
Yes, Roy, thanks for having me today. Well, I've been with Leviton for 15 years now. I've been with the spec team since 2016 and gained my RCD credit in 2019. I've been with the data center design team prior to that when I first came to Leviton in 2010. And then I was offered the opportunity to join the spec team, and I stepped out of my comfort zone. My background was in Cisco switches and servers, being a network engineer. Being on the specification team, it really allows me to work with some of the most talented people in the industry, from consultants to integrators to contractors, small and large end users. They're different in all their deployments, strategies, how they design. And being in this role allows me to be a subject matter expert, educator, designer, and a trusted advisor to my teams.
Yeah.
I love learning about the new technologies and keeping up with the latest and greatest in cable designs. And in this position, it keeps you on your toes, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's good. And what was your primary role as part of the data center design team?
So in that role, it was beginning of the data center era, when we were kind of getting into that component of designing, and the data centers were back to Ethernet and structured cabling and storage area networks. And I was in charge of gathering the proper information that was needed for Ethernet cabling, whether it was copper or fiber or SAN, InfiniBand, and then creating drawings, bills of materials, and helping the specification team in aiding our larger customers with data center designs in the newer data centers that were growing.
Okay. So you're up in the Chicago area, and another thing that Leviton has up there is Leviton Live. Just for everyone to know, that's the space where we have a lot of Leviton products. We bring customers and clients there to kind of show them the products. We have meeting rooms, and, we spend a day of it going through all the stuff, sometimes multiple days, talking about specific topics or whatever it is. And Ron, you have the luxury of being there. You go there often?
I do. I try to utilize the facility as much as possible. We have so many great consultants and contractors within the city limits and in the suburbs, but it allows us to bring in folks to view what we have. You can see all of our business units in this one facility, and we can showcase the network solutions. And we also have like a large training room. We have entertainment. So, if we have clients, we can bring in lunch and we can have great conversations. And it's meant to be kind of a total experience of what Leviton offers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a great space. I've been there once and it's a lot of fun. So, speaking of Chicago, how do you feel about those Chicago Blackhawks this season? I read that they have more than 10 players that are under 25.
Well, I've been a Blackhawks fan all my life, so obviously they're the best team in the league, according to me. But I'm biased, right?
Yeah.
But they're in the midst of a growing season, and the team is back on top for the team to watch. There's a lot of folks in hockey that just know the Blackhawks from their runs previously. So, they're a young, high energy team full of a lot of talent. They're just growing. And that's the fun thing is Chicago's, again, with hockey.
Yeah.
It's great to see all the hockey fans excited again, because after we won our last NHL championship in 2015, it kind of went just like any team. You have to rebuild And I think with this young team gearing up, we're looking forward to some good hockey again here and some playoff runs in the future.
Yeah, yeah, no, they are a fun team to watch. So, this season of our podcast, Beyond Bandwidth, is focused on extended distance over copper, that being devices requiring data and power, sometimes just data over 100 meters away, which is the standard. What solutions are you helping to specify that Leviton offers for these instances?
Extended distance is like the new buzz next to AI. Obviously, AI is what everybody's talking about, but with PoE being utilized so much, I think clients are wanting to push that limit of the PoE as far as they can. The limiting factor is always going to be just how far, right? We don't know anything but what the standard says, and that's at 100 meters. But most of the designs I've been involved in are usually extending video cameras that are PoE beyond that 100-meter standard. And WAPs are being extended in warehouses, or it's just that one device that's got to go further, and we just need to install a drop or an Ethernet for connectivity. So placement of those devices in a remote or hard to reach area are majority of the devices that I'm seeing that are being installed.
Yep.
Most devices becoming Internet of Things, we have to push that limit, and sometimes we have to redesign, or we have to use a separate product than just our typical Ethernet.
Yeah, so what other products are you using?
So obviously, your 100 meters is your limit, just like the standard says, but we do have some other options. We have tested a lot of our copper, and we have solutions that paired with the proper jacks and patch cables, we can get beyond that distance and send power over Ethernet to transmit without losing packets or loss of signal. We also have network extenders that allow us to use fiber optics to go beyond the long 100-meter distance and even further. And what that does is that plugs into an active device that can transmit the data over the fiber optic cable. And then on the remote ends, we can make that change and transfer it over back to an Ethernet connection,
Okay.
along with power in that cable. So it's like a composite cable.
Good, good. So you have the one reach system, which you're going further distances because you have fiber, right? So that's what gives us the distance, and the copper and that fiber allows us to go even further. And then, like you talked about, the standard copper products that we have with jacks and cable, we have tested them to certain limitations above the 100 meters. When Todd Harple talks about especially using extended distance over copper, which is mainly category cable with the typical passive products, he mentions the term engineered link. In our standard structured cabling, you put it in, and everything that lands in that bucket for that performance level, can work for it. Can you explain what he means when he's saying engineered link as far as extended distance over copper, why that would be specifically different than maybe its typical structured cabling?
Sure. Well, with the structured cabling, it's your typical 4 connector model, and that's what we're connecting our Ethernet traffic through, connecting servers to switches or routers. An engineer link is we're using all of the products that have been tested and a cable that can withstand more PoE over it with a specific jack that allows us to meet that criteria and get to that link to bring up the devices on each end.
Right. So for specific devices, specific situations. So as a specification engineer, what benefit are you able to provide to contractors, engineers, consultants when they need to connect devices, specific devices, which are farther away?
We kind of evaluate the entire channel. We don't just look at, hey, there's device going from position A to position Z. Our team, we ask questions about the PoE devices being utilized. How far is the actual cable run? We then ask questions about the speed, is it 10 meg or are we doing 10 gig, depending on what that is?
Yep.
We ask questions about the environment that they're being installed in. That makes a difference. Is it going to be indoor, outdoor, or possibly both?
Right.
We'll ask about if the runs are able to support the standard 4 connector model, and then will it support speeds over 1 gig? So we're able to offer some different copper solutions that fit the channel we are supporting and then able to use our fiber to copper converter if that distance needs to go beyond that typical 140, 150 meter sweet spot that we have.
Yeah, good. So when's the right time to reach out to Leviton Spec Engineer in general when you're contemplating your cable infrastructure or having to deal with this?
Well, I would say every time.
Yeah.
Anytime there's any kind of design that requires connectivity, whether it's regular connectivity for Ethernet or we're going beyond that 100-meter standard. We are trained to know that. We have folks like Todd on our team that are part of TIA that can help train us, and we also have a lot of information that we're able to share. We're able to evaluate the designs, look for alternatives and use best practices to create that solution that not only works today, but also if they upgrade something later down the line, the future connectivity can use that same structured cabling.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, Leviton's a big company and there's a lot of resources. So the spec engineer is just the kind of the tip of the spear with all that behind us, right? To be able to offer when we're going into a problem or an issue or a solution. So, what issues or problems have you experienced when dealing with things beyond 100 meters? Any obstacles that come into play when you're dealing with this or any issues? What do you come into problems with some of these requests and applications?
So the main issue I usually run into is when a client purchases a device such as a camera and doesn't know the specs needed for the connectivity to it. Think of the solution as like an entire working system and not just a cable that plugs into an Ethernet port. Is the category cable rated to go beyond that 100 meters? Are the jacks rated to support that cable? Is the switch capable of supporting that speed today and in the future? Many times a designer just wants to put in a long patch cord with plugs, plug it in and call it a day. But a lot of times that has to be utilized in the future for an upgrade because cameras or WAPs the longevity of them is a lot shorter than it used to be, the lifespan, and they're being replaced more often with higher end bandwidth, more pixels. So we're seeing a lot more of that. But always, it's not a structured design if you're just using a one long patch cord.
Right.
Plus, if the camera device is upgraded, like I said, usually can't reuse that cable. So we don't want to have that problem. We want to utilize the investment as well as we can.
That's a great point. We're positive towards what we might call an engineered link because we can solve an issue without having to put in a brand new IDF, right? I mean, that's the whole purpose of 95% of these extended distance applications is to avoid having to put in a new closet, a new IDF, switch, patch panel power, HVAC, real estate, to cover a few devices that are out of range. But the downfall is, we talked about an engineered link is for a specific device. So if OneReach is a good example, if I'm using the OneReach system with the fiber and copper and I have a camera on there that is type 3, 60 or 70 watts of power, and that's the standard IEEE 80.2 standard PoE, then that's great. But if I go in and I put a camera in that doesn't use standardized PoE, maybe it's type 4 or some other requirement. Maybe the speed requires more performance. Instead of 1 gig, it's 2.5 gig or something like that. And not saying that happens, but now that engineered link won't work for that device. And same thing with the over copper. It gets very specific because there's so many variables that are in there. So with that being said, on those lines, as the topic continues to expand, because you and I have been in this and everyone else in the industry has been talking about this for at least 3 years, probably closer to 4 years. Where do you see the industry going yourself as far as dealing with extended distance applications?
I think it's going to continue to grow and push the limits of copper, just how far can we go? I mean, affordability along with functionality is what we strive for and what we're going to design to. I think the industry is moving to high resolution cameras, faster bandwidth, faster NIC cards, and the need to be up 100% of the time and not have any packet loss.
Yeah.
Utilizing that structured solution that offers a warranty backed by a company that does extensive research like we have, and also done testing with temperature rise and fall, especially living in somewhere like Chicago where we see that high and low temperatures, the quality of the switches, and obviously the NIC cards. We have to understand that complete channel. So it's very critical for us to design around that. I think PoE is driving more products to be on that network,
Right.
and utilize the network switches more than we've seen before, because now the switch is acting as a power device. So more devices mean more switches, which in turn means more congestion on the network. So I think everything kind of snowballs, and we see more and more being taxed on the network, and network designers and engineers being more in charge of what's going on my network, and they have to segregate things.
Yeah, well, very good. Definitely a wealth of knowledge, Ron. You got a great background. We kind of came on the spec team about the same time.
Yeah.
Pretty close. I always use you as a resource, especially on the data center side. You have a great background on that. Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for all the information.
Oh, pleasure to participate. And as always, fun to talk to you and catch up a little bit.
All right, perfect.
Thanks, Roy.
Beyond Bandwidth is a podcast series produced by Leviton Network Solutions. For more information on the topics we talked about today, as well as other enterprise or data center network infrastructure content, or to check out all available episodes of Beyond Bandwidth, visit us on the web at leviton.com/beyondbandwidth, or wherever you normally listen to podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd appreciate you leaving an honest review in your podcast application. Along with word of mouth, leaving a review will help others find our show. I'm Roy Chamberlain, and this was Beyond Bandwidth. Until next time.